What's up, everyone? Today we're over at Hemmings and we're going over some of the great race history and mostly just some of the vehicles that Hemmings has brought to the races themselves. And we have Terry McGean, who is going to be walking us around this awesome Dodge. It's a really cool example of the era as well as some of the ingenuity that goes into getting the actual car in the race. So I'm going to let Terry go over this car for us.
All right, thanks for coming, Brian. This 34 Dodge has been with Hemmings for a long time. It's one of the vehicles that Hemmings used in the Great Race for a long time. We haven't run this car in the Great Race for, I'd say, probably over 10 years now, but it was a great car to use when we did use it. 34 Dodge is kind of an ornate body style. They call these trucks a humpback because of the way the van portion of the body is raised above the cab. And the 34 is particularly nice looking because of the grille and some other features of the styling. It's an inline 6-cylinder flathead Dodge engine that Dodge used forever. Of course, it's a manual 3-speed trans. The whole truck was restored and then mechanically upgraded a little bit. It was always very reliable when they used it. And even though the Great Race is a time distance rally and not a speed contest, vehicles can sometimes still get leaned on a bit, and the Dodge never let us down. It was a good truck. I can give you a walk around and show you some of the features on this unit. So looking at the front end of this 34 Dodge, you see that it's got this nice waterfall grille that they didn't actually use for very long, but it was really attractive. Sitting on top of that grille is the Ram, one of the earlier uses of that element of Dodge styling. You can see the Dodge Brothers logo there at the top of the grille. If you back out a bit, you can see these lollipop lights on the bumper. Those obviously aren't original. They were added for safety at some point so we could have turn signals. And then if you see, the condition of this thing is really nice. It was restored not to be driven, and then later the decision was made to use it for the Great Race, but it's held up really well. So you can see here this humpback design of the van body is pronounced enough that they were even able to put the Hemmings name up there. It's got extra mirrors on it and some other safety items because they were driving it on the road when they were using it for the Great Race. Let's take a look at the engine. As I said, it's a flathead Dodge 6, which is a pretty common engine. I'm going to be careful there. I don't want to mess it up. And you can see looking in there that it's well used. It was pretty when they first put it in after it was rebuilt, but it's been run enough that it's got some marks from use, a little bit of seeping freeze plug and stuff there. You can see it's got a GM one-wire alternator on it. Again, a concession for reliability for running the Great Race. And I think the engine itself is a little bit newer than the truck, but it's still the same design that it came with. Runs great. I think they changed the rear end gear in this at one point, and they told me this would go over 60 miles an hour, which is pretty quick for something from this era. And I think they had done various things. One of the modifications they made was making the rear windows in the van doors roll down because sometimes during the Great Race it would get quite hot and they were trying to get airflow through the vehicle. But the engine never let us down. The transmission, the driveline, everything held together. One of the things you can see in there is a speedometer clamped onto the steering column. That's a special time-wise speedometer that they use in the Great Race. It is electronic and it has a pickup on the front brake drum, sort of a flying magnet arrangement. The purpose of that is for accuracy because, again, the Great Race is a time distance rally. You need absolute speed accuracy, and there are, I think, morning calibration runs during the event to make sure that you're getting an accurate reading on your speedo. So that's our 34 Dodge panel. Again, a great truck, served us well during the Great Race, still a very roadworthy vehicle. We stopped using this in the Great Race some years ago and switched over to our Ford Speedster, which we're going to show you next. That's an open car. It seemed a little more sporting and just a little more fun to use out on the open road. That's up in our other garage, and we'll take up there and show you that now. This is our 1932 Ford Speedster, which is kind of an ambiguous term. A Speedster is a custom-made two-seat car that was popular in the 20s and 30s. People would take cars and usually turn them into speedsters. That's kind of what happened with this. It is sort of a hot rod. It's a Model A frame with a flathead V8 engine, which of course didn't come out until 1932. That's why this is referred to as a 32. Kind of in the genre of a great race. It goes by the engine, I think. The frame has been Z'd in the back. You can see it's got the transverse leaf spring in the front. That's kind of a suicide deal. That's another hot rod deal. Split wishbones. It's got a boat tail because again that's part of the speedster style. And then at one point they put this windshield on it. It's sort of kind of like a Duval windshield, but really it was made so that we could put a top on the car, because a couple of the years the race went through the desert and having an open car with no top was a little extreme for the people who were riding in the car, the navigator and the driver. So that's where the windshield came from. I can show you here. You see all these stickers? These are ACE awards, which are given for doing particularly well on a particular leg of the great race. So if you hit your time really tight, you can get an ACE award. And over the years, as you see, the speedsters accumulated quite a few of them. You can see on here, for a time, the Hemmings 34 Dodge that we looked at was part of the ACE sticker. The other stickers on here are sponsor related, dictated by whoever is sponsoring the race that year. Of course, Hemmings has been a title sponsor of the great race for a long time. We continue to do that. If you look in here, take the hood back, you'll see on this thing a lot of the body was custom made, I'll say. It was made by hand. We didn't do that here. The car was purchased as a speedster. Someone else had built it to run in the great race. And then the former publisher of Hemmings bought it, and we've done a lot of work on it here over the years. Again, they kind of wanted to use an open car that was a little more sporting than the van, and that's how we got this. It's had a couple different flatheads in it. You can clearly see that it's got some hot rod parts on it with the Edelbrock finned heads, and I think that intake manifold might be aftermarket, even though it's still running just a 2-barrel. I think the 2-barrel is one of the newer Strombergs that you can buy new. You'll see that it's got a GM alternator like the Dodge, and I think it might have electronic ignition in it. You can see the remote oil filter on it. There's other things. These wheels are, I think they're Dayton wires with knockoffs that were used. The overall style of the car, I think, was patterned after a Bugatti of the 30s. That's why it's this color. It's the boat tail look to it, and putting these wheels on it and bobbing the frame in the front was all, I think, done by the builder to give it the look of a Bugatti Speedster from that time. You can see on the inside it's all aftermarket gauges, another time-wise speedometer and dash. There's a rally clock there to help with staying on track. It's got a removable steering wheel to make getting in and out a little easier. The banjo style wheel is aftermarket, as you can see, but was sort of in keeping with the era of the car. You might also notice that the steering wheel is broken. I think it gave up on the last race that the car was used for. The wrap on there, as you can see, is just an aftermarket steering wheel cover that had to be used also because of being out in the sun. The rim on that steering wheel is metal, and on a hot afternoon you don't want to be putting your hands on that. The windshield that was in it before this one was much lower, but it's a neat car. We used it in the great race for many years. It went through a bunch of different configurations to keep it running and try to keep it reliable. When our former publisher, Jim Minetto, retired, the car, I think, is probably going to be at least temporarily retired from great race duty for now. Jim is going to continue racing. He's going to be using a different car and campaigning in the great race on his own this year. We're going to drive something a little more conventional. So we're back here in the shop at Hemmings, and behind me is our '69 Chevelle. This is an SS 396 convertible that Hemmings has owned for a long time. If you read Hemmings Muscle Machines magazine, A couple of years ago, you would have seen a bunch of stories on a series where we were upgrading the engine and transmission. Then COVID happened, and we had to get out of the building, and we kind of had to shelve the project for a while. So now we're coming back into the building, we're getting back to work on the car, and the Great Race has sort of been a great impetus to get us back on this thing and get it done, kind of get over its 90% syndrome that it's had for the past couple of years. So we've got some more work to do. We want to get the car on the ground, running, and drive it around and shake it down before the race begins, so we know that the thing is good. So hopefully we'll have it running, sorted out, all ready to go for the race when the time comes.
Keep an eye on the Hemmings YouTube channel, because this is one wicked cool car, and I'm really looking forward to covering getting this shaken down and what you can do to get your car ready to actually go on the race yourself. Everything from making sure it's reliable to installation of the very interesting speedometer that is critical to be competitive. So if you like this kind of content, you want to follow along, remember, head over to the Hemmings YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're sticking around here, make sure you hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and as always, keep your shiny side up, and God bless.